Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jane Hewitt and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. And for those of you who haven't attended a webinar with us before, Connecting Up and TechSoup facilitate an annual training calendar of online webinars, workshops, boot camps and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all things digital. And you can check out our training and education menu on the website for more events coming up this year. So welcome today to the webinar Workplace Giving, Unlocking the Door to Payroll Donations, Match Donations, Volunteers, Rewards and Fundraisers with Good Company. And before we begin, I'll just start with a bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type them into the questions box on the GoToWebinar panel, and I should be able to assist. If you have any questions during the session, please also type them into the questions box, and we'll have a Q&A coming up at the end of today's webinar. And please note that your comments and questions are not visible to the rest of the group. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the video and the audio. So if possible, please close any programs that you're not using. And please note that this webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a copy of the slides and the recording towards the end of today. And just before we start, I'd like to remind you that there's a short survey at the end of the webinar and we'd really appreciate any feedback. So that's all from me. I will pass over to Lauren to get things started.
Hey everybody, so I'm Lauren from Good Company. I am the head of strategy and delivery, and I'd also just love to introduce Corrie. Corrie, do you want to do your thing?
I'm obviously not technically minded, not being able to work the mute button, but I'm Corrie and I'm the social impact manager from Optus. And previous to that, I was the events, fundraising, and all things that happens in an NFP, working with a not-for-profit at 180TC.
I am going to apologise. I don't really know how to do this. We are both sharing a desk, working from home in Melbourne. So if you hear a bit of background noise, I significantly apologise. We're also going to have the CEO of Good Company, Ash, joining us shortly. He's having some technical issues. So as soon as he joins, he will be taking over this presentation part because of the whole background noise situation. But anyway, let's get started. So thank you for joining us for our Workplace Giving presentation, just around unlocking the door to payroll donations, match donations, volunteering, rewards and fundraisers. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Ash,
hello. Hi everyone. How are we doing? Good? Sorry, can you hear me now? Fantastic. I had a few problems trying to get on to GoToWebinar, but I'm glad we are all on now. Often use Zoom. I don't know who's out there who's old enough who remembers Aretha Franklin. Do you remember her song, Who's Zooming Who? You'd have to be sort of close to 50. Corey is nodding his head. No, we are on GoToWebinar. And thank you very much, Connecting Up, for inviting us in to give a talk about workplace giving. Today what we want to do is talk about unlocking the door to donors, volunteers and fundraisers. So let's kick it off. Why is workplace giving important? What has happened, I guess, since the 80s, 90s, ever since Ronald Reagan came in with his trickle-down theory, something that I'm hugely passionate about, is economics and also philosophy and inequality. And it's got to a state now where there is a website, and there's a whole bunch of links at the end of this presentation, where they talk about companies that are richer than entire countries. So we've got a chat function open, don't we? Can everyone use their chat?
The questions will come at the end, Ash.
Oh, the questions at the end. Okay. Because we were going to ask some questions about who knows what companies are richer than what countries. So, for example, Twitter is actually richer than which country? Can people send in an answer? No.
Yeah, people can type into the questions box and then I can see that.
People can type into the questions box. Okay, so who wants to have a go of companies richer than entire countries? And I need to look this up on my phone too. So, yes, we have a situation now where, for example, Amazon is actually richer than Australia, and Twitter is richer than Mauritius, and all these countries. So whereby charities before were looking for government for grants and funding, really what we're trying to do and other workplace giving providers is unlock the goodwill of companies, but also the richness of companies to support those in the community and to give. So in the old days, the way that would work is, could go to the next slide. Yeah, really what would happen is even 5-10 years ago, if you called a company up and said, we're from a charity, we have a mission around health, homelessness, animals, all sorts of great causes out there, they would say, well, that's quite interesting. However, we review our workplace giving program every 4 or 5 years. Please put a note in your diary to contact us in 2025. And that was one of the inherent problems with workplace giving, that there was what we would call the chairman's or the chairman's wife's possibly choice on what charity they wanted to support. And really with technology, what we've done now is allow it to open the door and create marketplaces where we can connect lots of different organizations to companies who are looking to give back. And they're looking to give back not just because it's the kind of right thing to do, but also this is what their staff now expect. It's what their consumers expect. It's what stakeholders are starting to expect more and more from companies, to the point where last year in the US, there was actually a complete redefinition of what it means to be a corporate. So that was for the last 80 years has been solely around that is there for the shareholders and to give back to shareholders. But now they really have bought into the purpose of a company, that it is about their people and their planet and their community and their shareholders. So all those stakeholders are very much now about what it means to be a company and to thrive. And so I kind of jumped in without introducing everyone to, speaking of being in good company. So we have Corey, who we're going to hear from shortly, from Optus, and Lauren Gunston, who is our head of strategy and delivery at Good Company. Great. Now we are talking about corporates and workplace giving, and one of the other huge drivers now for corporates is where a few years ago they would say, well, thank you very much, Dogs Rescue. However, we are just supporting this one charity, our entire company is behind it. And that was, I guess, a strategy which was kind of exclusive. But now there is such a growing movement about inclusiveness and diversity and the power of diversity, and studies that show across from, Bain Consulting, Harvard Business School, real dummies out there who have studied it and shown that if you have a diverse board, if you have a diverse workforce, if you have diverse voices in the room, that these companies actually do better in both the short and the long term. and that diversity and inclusion is absolutely paramount. And one of the ways that companies can bring that to life and talk about it is actually by saying to their staff, we respect you, we trust you, and we want to support the things that are closest to your heart. So if you are into Indigenous affairs, if you're into health, if you're into education, if you're wanting to support LGBTI causes, whatever your interests and passions, we want to try and meet those. And one of the ways to do that is through workplace giving and allowing them to volunteer, donate and fundraise to those diverse charities. So now that we know that, you know, there are doors to knock on and there are doors to unlock, and that companies are interested in engaging with charities large and small and everything in between, and want to play to diversity and inclusion, then we face this challenge where a lot of charities were coming to us and saying, well, So Good Company, who are the corporates that are giving back and doing good, and what are their policies around volunteering, around payroll giving, around sponsorship, about action plans? So we went ahead and built something called the Best Workplaces to Give Back. So this is going to be its 3rd year. And what we do is we invite companies to share their policies and their standards and how they set up their giving program. So we'll ask a question like, is there paid volunteer leave? Great. If there's paid volunteer leave, is it 1 day, 5 days, 10 days? Even better, it's 10 days. Some of them have actually unlimited volunteer leave. Mervac being one of them, Origin Energy being another. So within reason, you speak to your manager and they will give you unlimited volunteer leave, which is great. But then companies that actually have a budget to put towards volunteering, they get ranked a little bit higher. So we do that across volunteering, across payroll giving. Again, do they have a payroll giving program? Great, that's worth 1 point. Do they match donations? Great, that's worth 2 points. Is it capped? That's worth 3 points. Is it uncapped? 5 points. So we grade everything, rate everything, and then we have the best workplaces to give back, and we're happy to share this presentation at the end, and there are some references there. But if you Google it now, best workplaces to give back, you can see who they are across Australia. And we are very fortunate to work with probably a half or a third of those best workplaces to give back. We'd love to work with all of them, of course, but we work with a great number of organisations and companies who are really leaders in giving back. And that's a great parlay handball to Corrie from Optus in terms of leading giving and giving back. I guess a little bit of background too is, you know, Good Company owes a great deal of debt to Optus, and I don't say that lightly because basically, you know, they were a company who 7 or 8 years ago, when we bought Good Company and the Karma Foundation together and wanted to unlock this time, talent and treasure, it was Optus at the same time who was saying, hey, we've spoken to our staff, we want more choice, we want to bring together that nexus of volunteering, donating, fundraising. So they were our very first client to launch with the new platform. And Corrie Barney, never said your last name.
Burn.
Yeah. You wouldn't say Barney, would you? That's ridiculous. Burn. And he's a social impact manager within the Optus sustainability team. His roles around staff engagement in workplace giving, fundraising and volunteering. He considers himself bilingual. We'll learn more about that. Not because he speaks 2 languages, but he's worked on both the not-profit side of the fence and now the corporate side. Previously, Corey ran an online web development and marketing company supporting Australian SMEs. So, Corey, take it away.
Great. Look, I apologise for the photo that's been lifted off, I think, Facebook or something, and it was probably about 10 years ago. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think I do still own the sunglasses. But anyway, I guess Ash asked me to come on today for a couple of reasons.
I think I'm wearing your shirt from then too.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ash asked me to come on today for a few reasons. One, I have been on both sides of the fence, had the opportunity to work from a charity point of view as a not-for-profit using Good Company, and then jumped onto the other side of the fence and now worked on the corporate side. And historically before that, I've actually developed with developers a platform around, a whole user management system, content management system. So I kind of am able to appreciate some of the challenges, I guess, that Good Company have gone through creating this, but also in terms of being a user on both sides, which is why I said, although I can't speak 2 languages, I'd love to. It's one of those bucket list things. I'd love to be able to actually speak a second language, but I have learned coming from charity that there are some real dialect differences between what we hear on a charity side and what we need, and then what we hear and what we need on a corporate side. And so I thought I'll just go through a few of those today and give a little bit of background about that. And first one up, I think, is the not-for-profit slide, which is where I was previously with 180TC. So the next slide. So I worked with a group. It's only a small charity, relatively small charity. In terms of globally, they're actually the largest rehabilitation centre in the world, with representation, I think, in over 150 countries. And I think it was 1,300 centres. So they're an enormous drug and alcohol residential rehab centre. They operate under a few names, but the one I was operating under was 180TC. And as I said, being a smaller charity, at least locally, it came with it the challenges. And my assumption today is we are speaking to a number of charity people here. And so I guess, and I know Lauren's come from a charity background as well, so I'm not going to be saying anything new to anyone saying that I didn't wear one hat. I wore about 8. And I think that's every person in charity world. It's learning prioritization. So I first learned about Good Company while I was at 180TC, and I guess our onboarding experience with Good Company was trying to work out where it sit really in terms of priority. And from a charity perspective, yeah, as I said, I understand the language is we're resource and financially constrained, and so finding time to invest into a platform of, at this stage, unknown return. It was really a question of ROI, because in case of our charity, we were very events driven rather than workplace or giving or even philanthropy. It was much more an events driven type charity. So it was something for us that really was a new, I guess, journey. And look, we had some choices to face. Very early on, we were being encouraged by one of our supporters to jump on board so that they could start giving to us. And so it was literally a question of, all right, where do I take resource from and invest into this platform? I tried to scribble down a few ideas. What would I have done different if I went back there now? Because as a charity looking in, you get a lot of resource information when you log into Good Company. And some of the things I think that I would try to do different had I gone back to that role would definitely be a better follow-up of donors. Each month I'd receive a report and it would outline who supported me and whether they're happy to get information. In all honesty, I was pretty poor at following them up, and as a result, probably didn't mine the opportunity as well as I could have in terms of the charitable use. The other thing I would encourage is get in touch with the corporate partners that actually are supporting you, and if you can, find out who their sustainability teams are or their workplace giving relationship managers are, and get in touch with them, because I think it's important to recognise that there are a lot of opportunities in corporates, but then the second point or the third point I'd make is that charities operate, and I don't know who here has heard of dog years, but apparently there's 7 years, 7 dog years in 1 year. And I think charities are a bit like that. They have 7 years in 1 year. So what they think can happen in a year is 7 times larger than what an actual corporate can do. And I can throw that one to Ash as well. In terms of just that recognition that things take time. And so how I like to describe it is when I was working with 180, I was in a tinny, and I could jump in my little tinny. I'd grab 3 or 4 people with me, and we could zoom across the lake and have no problems turning, spinning, doing anything we liked. And I could run events within 2-3 weeks. It was anything I wanted to do. I could get going really quickly. I jumped over to the other side of the fence and worked out I'm in the Queen Mary. And I need to book in tugboats now. And I need to have a harbour booking just to even arrive and depart, right? It's ridiculous the amount of things you have to jump through when you go to the other side of the fence. And a recognition of this. So I think probably, and I'll get onto this in a sec, but in terms of some expectations of corporates is also something I think charity partners need to learn. So the key things I think out of this, especially relating to good companies, there's a huge resource of reporting that comes with it. There's a huge opportunity in terms of the corporates that are actually involved in the platform, but it does require some effort from you to actually engage and then data mine, if you like, those opportunities. So that's kind of the 180 TC hat and what I've learned from there. If you go on to the next slide. So then I jump to, and Eva will love this photo, then I jump to Optus, and I guess the other side of the fence, and we have a platform there that's known as Yes for Good. And as Ash shared, we've been using Good Company since 2013. And in that time have seen, various engagement around workplace giving, around fundraising, and also around volunteering. One of the first points I'd make is, as I said with the analogy of the boat, certainly I've jumped into Optus and there are still constraints. They're different constraints, they're different problems, but when you move from a charity where you can move really quickly, there are just different constraints when you go into a corporate. And so any of the charity partners, I think there's a few things, again, I'd encourage in terms of if you want to engage a corporate, one of the first things you should be looking at, and Ash shared this before, is alignment. Because although in Optus we've got 6,000-7,000 people, you can get some great fundraisers going and raise a few hundred or a few $1,000s using the fundraising platform that can be driven by employees, which is fantastic. But to really get in and create a massive event, then you want to make sure that the people you're speaking to you're absolutely aligned with, and you're looking at how does this align with their overall strategy to get a much broader impact. The other thing, as I said, would be timing. In terms of recognizing that just coming up and saying, hi, Corey, I'd love to do something with Optus, what are you doing next week? It's pretty tough to actually deliver. It's those sorts of things, again, especially if you're hoping to create a real impact as opposed to plant a seed. So really, in terms of now the other side of the fence, some of the fantastic things that we've been able to develop with Good Company, there's obviously, and you can see, very difficult for me on this small screen, especially with glasses, but there's the volunteering, there's the donations, there's the fundraising. In terms of, yep, thanks. Go lost. In terms of, and each of these platforms, and I know each of the corporates have their own skin that leverages off the underlying platform of Good Company. So ours, we've come up with this, which is our corporate colors. The power of this is at any given time, an employee can log in and they're able to nominate over, I think it's 1,800 charities now on the platform, there or thereabouts, and absolutely support the cause that they want to support through workplace giving. So it's a sort of a monthly or a fortnightly pay cycle, or they can do one-offs, they can do credit cards, all that sort of stuff. The other thing they can do is create their own fundraising opportunities. And from a sustainability, social impact manager's point of view, this is a fantastic tool because I don't have to do it all. And that's the reality. Is I'm kind of like a charity within a corporate, in that we don't have a huge budget either. And so literally the more I can have self-organizing fundraising opportunities, the greater impact and the greater reach we can achieve as an organization, and do it in terms of, I guess, areas that people specifically are interested in. So that's the workplace giving side and fundraising. And then the other powerful thing is, pre-COVID, volunteering. Unfortunately, this has obviously taken a bit of a hit, but we're hoping to once again get this up and running. And again, from a charity perspective, one of the things that I guess, unless someone's absolutely passionate and aware of your cause, it's unlikely you're going to get money from them, from either their staff or from the organisation as a whole, because there are 1,800 charities. And so I think it's important to recognise opportunities that you can leverage through the platform, including things like volunteering as a way in. So at Optus, we have scheduled or a paid volunteer leave. We're up to 5 days per annum. So that's one of the things that we're offering. And I know other corporates do something very similar. And definitely this is very much something that we're constantly reviewing. And we're looking for our teams to be able to engage with charity partners, not just from the point of view of investing back into the community, but even just from a team wellbeing point of view, team building activities, and it's a great way to engage our staff. So there's a lot of pluses. From a charity perspective, it's how do you create those so they have impact, so that when you've got these eyeballs, I guess, on site, wherever else, it's how do you engage them so that they do walk away with a greater awareness both of what you're doing, but also of your need. Which could potentially lead to workplace giving or fundraising pages. To sort of wrap up now, what I'd love to see, I was sharing before what I'd love to have done different if I went back to charity. What I'd love to see now as a corporate, and if any people on here reach out to me post this call, what I'd love to see is the attitude of a farmer, that if you're going to get in touch with any corporate, I think it's necessary to understand that growing a crop takes time, and growing a really big crop takes longer time. There's a lot of cultivation to do. There's a lot of sowing. Okay, you really need to invest time into developing a strategy that's going to deliver a great yield. And so I think having that mindset as a charity partner, if you're approaching a corporate, you need to recognize it's going to take some time to achieve any real impact. It doesn't mean that you can't get engagement quickly. It doesn't mean that you can't get fundraisers going or even workplace giving going. All of those are great. But to create a long-term arrangement or strategic partnership with a corporate, I think you've just got to understand it takes a lot of time. The other part of that is set some realistic expectations. Now, that said, when I was with a charity partner, we had an absolute bluebird drop in. We were on the platform and one of the corporate partners chose us for their random golf day. And so we got a windfall that we didn't expect. So there's some of the bluebirds that drop in, but equally, as I said, it wasn't like we went on the platform and thousands of people said, oh, well, let's give money to them. I think it does actually take some investment and some strategy to start thinking through ways, how do you actually engage with the corporates? Back to you, Ash.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I love that farming analogy. And I guess it's when, you know, you could just keep going, like, when do you sow the seeds? Where do you plant the seeds? Which area should you try and farm? Which sort of talks to, I guess, yeah, finding some shared value and common interests. And that I have definitely written down and will ponder further on it. Now, one other thing too, would love to ask you about is your vouchers too. At Optus. Yeah, so Optus are one of our clients that don't do a classic match where it's matched dollar for dollar. It's matched via vouchers that can be redeemed later on. Do you want to talk about how that works, or?
Yeah, so we offer a matched giving voucher to each of our staff that donate through the platform. I guess it's our way, from a corporate point of view, of giving back into the community, and it is via a match give. So each year we operate on a financial year which is Singapore based, which goes from April through March. And so it gives us enough time to close off the financial year. And then this month we've actually launched our vouchers during Workplace Giving Month, which has been a great opportunity to get people onto the platform, promote the fact that it's workplace giving. As they're redeeming vouchers, there's also then a chance for them potentially to top it up via credit card or workplace giving. So that's been one of the benefits for us. And I think just from a staff point of view, it's given them the freedom then to give back to a charity of choice. So it's a mix of, as a corporate, we will pick some campaigns that we may match dollar for dollar regardless. We had a recent one with emergency relief. But then on top of that, we also like to honour each of our staff that give to the value of $300, so on a match give voucher.
Brilliant. Well, yes, you know, the platform's called Yes for Good, and yes, we are very happy and grateful for you sharing some of your thoughts today on the platform. And now next, Loz is going to take it away with, is there a drum roll button?
Yeah, if everybody could just do a little drum roll on their own desk. Good news is my partner's off his call now, so won't be any background noise. But yes, I will be taking it away, starting to talk about how to kind of get started and register. So essentially what you need to do is just head to the platform, which is goodcompany.com.au or .co.org.nz. There's a New Zealand version. I always forget it, which is, I'm very sorry about. And then in the top right-hand corner, there's a register my charity section. So essentially it's really simple. It's like 6 steps that takes you through. You identify the name of the charity, you show that you have DGR status or whatever the equivalent would be in New Zealand, and you get yourself all set up on the platform. Now, there's a few different ways that you can be set up, which I can quickly run through here. So volunteering is free on our platform, and as Corey mentioned earlier, volunteering is, and this is kind of the way that I think about it, it's the Trojan horse to be able to get kind of you into the organization. So where I used to work at Movember, and we would always say that getting, like, the people are the Trojan horse to get in. So if we would find a passionate person at Coles, for example, that was our way of getting into senior management and to be able to create really like long partnerships. And what volunteering does is that gives you a way in to be able to find those really passionate people, to get them to connect to your cause, and to really understand what it is that you do, where the money goes, all that type of stuff. And that is how they can create that passion in the workplace and really bring other people along the ride with them. And that is potentially, again, your way into senior management, your way into proper commercial partnerships with those organizations or businesses. So yeah, again, once you're registered, you head into your portal, which is just over here, and there's a little drop down. And then there'll be a section over here that says volunteering, and you can list roles, and you can list as many roles as you like. And that can be things from, you know, group volunteering days. So, you know, large amounts of staff going in to do something in particular, of which Optus does quite a bit, and a lot of our large corporates do. Or it could be that you're looking for someone to help with the SEO of your website. So you'd be looking for an SEO expert to come in and do a couple of days or a day to really improve the SEO of what that page is looking like. So there is a whole gamut of different ways that you can look at volunteering. It could be that you need help with, you know, getting your annual report in a presentable format, because often those bad boys can be quite ugly. So it can be anything. Volunteering is absolutely the heart and soul and the way to get in to organizations and to get that kind of expertise that otherwise nonprofits just wouldn't have the access to. And then we talk about.
Can I just add something there too? That we've got, you see on the screen there above, there's find a volunteer template or create your own volunteer opportunity. So the problem we're trying to solve there is that we understand how time poor organizations are, and the idea of writing a position description from scratch about a you know, IT tester or a lawyer or someone to join the board is you know, really onerous and really difficult. And so you could go into templates, go, we need a board member, and it pre-fills a lot of that description, the skills, aptitude, time requirements, everything else, and you can just sort of tailor it a bit to your organization and hopefully get up volunteer roles in a matter of minutes rather than sort of days or weeks.
Exactly. And the good thing is when you add a new role, our kind of algorithm makes sure that the newer stuff is always rotating to the top. So whenever you add something, it will get a little bit of love down here in the listing. So that's another little hot tip for you. And then when we talk about donors, so there's obviously loads of organizations that we're working with, and they all have thousands of employees, and you need to find a way to catch their eye and get them to really want to donate to something that they care about. And this is exactly the way to go about it. So you can list dollar handles. So again, talking about my old world, at Movember, it was really hard for us to come up with dollar handles because it's not like a quantifiable $10 buys you an X or $20 buys you a Y. Whereas there'll be other charities where, like we've got Lifeline here, you know, cover the cost of a call. That is something that is quantifiable. You can chuck a $20 at it. And it also makes the person who's donating feel connected and knowing that their money is going to something very important and actually is tangible. So we really believe that creating dollar handles and meaningful dollar handles is a really great way for you to get donors and to really get that traction happening. And again, and it's really simple. So you go into your portal again, which is just here, drop in, and then on the right, sorry, the left, there is a section that just says dollar handles. And again, you can create ones or duplicate them, or you can start them from scratch. Quick 4-step process, really easy to get them online. And once they're live, you can promote them as much as you like. Is there anything else that we needed to add about dollar handles, Ash?
Oh, we could just go on forever.
Yeah, but we can't do that. Yes, Corey?
Can I suggest a good range of dollar handles? Yeah, so having a 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, I think is important, especially when you're talking workplace giving, because if you consider what a, you know, someone who's on a half decent salary, how much they'd actually give per week, per month, per whatever, per pay, then I'd be setting your dollar handles something in that sort of vicinity.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
One thing too I'll probably add is that now we have the ability to add a UN SDG to the gift. So the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, they're the goals that they've released to track particularly corporate giving to 2030. So there's a long sort of roadmap there over the next 8-9 years and targets around that. And if you could say, okay, this meets the goal of life below water, then there are particular corporates out there who align to that, and they want to measure against that, and they will help, you know, draw staff's attention to those causes. So yeah, that's something also to keep in mind.
I think that's actually step 3. Great. Ash, back to you.
Great. Well, we could finish early and go home early, but we'll have some time for questions, hopefully. But yeah, hopefully, you know, what we've learned today, some of the key takeaways is that the companies are under pressure, staff, customers, investors, to act in the best interest of the people, community, and the planet. You'll see more and more in the press, they call it ESG, environment, social, and governance. BlackRock, other Citibank, large, you know, capital players are now looking at corporates and saying, what's your ESG record if we're going to invest in you? And the beautiful thing, though, with that pressure is it unlocks this virtuous circle where they're like, okay, here's a problem. We're under pressure to do good, but wow, people actually love doing good, and they feel good, and they feel good about themselves and about, you know, their job and their relationships, and you feel healthier doing fundraisers and feel, you know, more connected, volunteering, and it's just such. I mean, this is what makes us jump out of bed, I think, every day, is that we work in this really fascinating space where you've got big problems, but the solutions actually like do good. These companies, they want to volunteer, donate, fundraise, reward, and make a difference. And the organisations, hopefully, that are watching today can, through us, lock into and unlock some of that goodwill from those companies, and do it in a simple, measurable, and meaningful way. So, yes, we've got time, hopefully, to get some questions through.
We have one question so far from Mary, just asking if you could please repeat the UN reference details.
Great. So the UN SDGs, if you Google that, and it is around the United Nations project around sustainable development goals. So there are 17 different goals. They're quite graphic. They're quite beautiful, if you like, and they talk about gosh, it's almost like playing bingo, UN SDG bingo. There's sustainability, there's cities, there's equal opportunity, there's life above land, life below water. Corey, do you know some more? Do you want to?
Sure. I was about to say, so basically the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, a whole group of companies and countries have come together with an ambitious target to address 17 areas by 2030. And it's all around things like clean water, environment, gender equality, access to education, sanitation. So each of these areas, and when it comes back to corporate, it's certainly an important measure that we use in terms of what we're trying to address. So any of the corporates out there would definitely be looking at SDGs, and definitely if you put those within your dollar handles, it's, you know, for instance, with our team, there is an environmental manager. He's going to go on, he's going to be looking for environmental causes. So if you've ticked one of those environmental causes, he's more likely to find your charity than he is if, you know, if you've left that bit out. So, but yeah, but there's 17 goals. There's a website, sdgs.un.org.
Yep, that's the one. Terrific. Do we have some more questions?
Rita is asking, can you list on the platform if you only have DGR status but not charity status?
Yes, yeah. With tax law, payroll giving can only be made to charities with DGR type 1 status, and seeing as most of the corporates that we have on board that do payroll giving, that would like it on a pre-tax basis, that flows through our foundation out to the charities. But, you know, we understand that it is tough to get DGR. Not everyone has DGR. So sometimes charities also get auspiced, which is buddying up with a charity with a DGR status and using that. But yeah,
Okay,
that's,
thank you.
that's
Keith,
part of it. That's part of, I guess, too, the bona fides when we work with a company like Optus and they say, good company, who are the charities we can support and what bona fides, what due diligence do you have on them? You know, we can say, well, they're registered with the ACNC, they have DGR1 status, which means they've got board, constitution, trust deeds, and so on.
excellent. Keith is asking what sort of rewards work well for dollar handles. I'm part of an NFP history museum. Is it reasonable to raise dollar handles to cover operating costs so that we can use any flexibly to restore vehicles, as sometimes we have to move funds around to cover maintenance on vehicles and displays?
Yeah, great question. And I think, you know, we all, I mean, it's a core principle of good company around transparency. And I guess for every charity out there, also, you know, it's about being completely transparent. And I think donors like that. So, you know, some charities say, well, $50, it's a picture of a light bulb. What's that? Well, you know, we don't get free electricity. So we work in a place and we've got to keep the lights on. And when we keep the lights on, we're in the office answering calls, helping people with domestic violence. Or, you know, it's a picture of a phone. We've got to pay our phone bills. So I think, you know, having a picture of a wrench or, you know, a cool car part and just saying, help keep us on the road, because that's where we do our best work, is something that I think would be quite attractive to donors. Yeah. What do you think, Loz?
I agree.
I'll just share, Ash, that I think it's a little bit back to the farming analogy of know what you're planting towards. If it's one thing to put just a dollar handle, a graphic and some content up on the site, it's another thing to find it, and it's another thing for them to then commit to giving to it. So with, I don't know how many corporates, when you add up all of your 50, 60,000, I'm guessing, plus corporates are represented on your platform, staff. So if you've got that many eyeballs coming in and out of that platform, how do you capture that heart and mind? I think it takes a bit more strategy than just throwing up a dollar handle. I think you need to engage as well, so that you're actually starting to make that a strategy rather than just throw up dollar handles.
And that kind of, oh, sorry, go on, Ash.
You go.
I was just going to say that talks to what Corey was referring to earlier in regards to the reporting and understanding who is giving, and understanding what it is that motivates them. So if you find that there's people that are donating to you, you will receive a report, and if they've opted into sharing their information, you can then get in contact with them and ask them what motivated you to give, what is it that you were looking for, what, you know, are there other people that would be interested, and what would motivate them. The more kind of understanding you have of your supporters, the better you can tailor what it is that you're delivering to other supporters as well. And that's a key way to use our platform, to even just have that understanding and that foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing, like if there is car maintenance, you know, I know my stepbrother Phil, who was at ANZ for 20 years, if he saw a volunteer opportunity saying, come out and help us, you know, tinker with our truck, mate, he would have been out there with 10 of his mates, you know, helping out. And what are you going to do? What are you going to talk about while you're tinkering? You're going to talk about the mission. You're going to talk about, you know, the challenges. What a great you know, my background's advertising, but I can't think of a better ad for an organisation than spending, you know, an afternoon fixing up a truck and talking about, you know, what you do and what you're facing and where you want to go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that's it for the questions. But yeah, I see you've put your contact details on that screen there. So if anybody would like to get in touch, the details can be seen there. And I'll also be including them in the recording and the slides that will be sent out later on today. So thank you, Corey, Lauren and Ash for joining us today. And thank you everybody for joining us on this webinar.
Jane, thank you, and thank you Connecting Up for having us.
No
we
worries.
appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day. Cheers. Bye-bye.